see, can you, Jose? By the dumpster fires alight, the one-star Uber we hailed to attend the Twilight book burning, whose broad waists and bright veneers filmed a Waffle House fight. Oh, the podcasts we watch. Insurrection, Twitch streaming, and the factories lay bare, choked on fried butter at the fair, settled out of court, but the Yelp review is still there. Oh, say does that Costco black card allow me to say, scamming the dumb and elderly, finding out your family owned a slave. That's how you do it, Whitney. This is how I would rank all 50 U.S. states based on how much I want to firebomb them. The Department of Homeland Security does not approve of that title. Okay, based on how much I want to wipe them off the map? Based on how much I want them to fall into a sinkhole? Here is the tier list. F tier, nuke it. E tier, turn it into a penal colony with the inhabitants trapped inside. Set up a bunch of hidden cameras. That's a TLC show, the classiest one yet. With Weinstein now out of jail, baby, we can team up with him and maybe win a daytime Emmy. D tier, sell it back to the English, the French, the Mexicans, the Españoles, the Russians. Heck, you know what? I'm gonna just give it back to the natives for free. C tier. I have no strong opinion on this state. Y'all might as well not exist. But I don't hate you, just neutral. B tier. I respect you. Not necessarily for good reasons, though. These are like the state equivalents of OJ. R.I.P. King! A tier. I legit might consider moving here. Get ready, because I'm gonna be ruining the neighborhood. Not because I am black, but because I will be committing insurance fraud. S tier. Heaven on earth. Let's begin. Alabama, swinging moonshine, with my disability scooter in recline. Committing incest, water supply failed a lead poisoning test. Bob Dylan wants what I have. I don't care that I made an overly used incest joke. It's fitting, and it's part of the unholy trifecta of transgressions. And before you call me a ritzy, classist elitist for making fun of the South, just know that I'm not fond of city slickers neither. Back when I was attending NYU, I would slip little notes under the doors of artsy kids that read, "Your mental illness is not valid, you dilettante." I count that as a public service. You know, I don't really mind Hicks, but there's just nothing to do in this state. Outside of losing your innocence in the woods or getting kicked out of Alabama State for saying a slur on camera. Not the acceptable way, which is to whisper or spray paint it. D tier. Alaska. I want to drive to the border of this state to just stare at Russia through a pair of binoculars while sucking the stuffing out of a pierogi. I know that they are technically Polish and not Russian. But what classic Russian dish am I supposed to eat with one hand? Borscht? Am I supposed to slurp it out of the palm of my hand like a thirsty feral horse? Y'all want to shade the former governor of this state. And sure, some Walmart managers had more responsibilities than she did, but Sarah Palin was doing corporate bayonetta before Bayonetta. This is the only U.S. state to have polar bears, and the residents have not either domesticated them to ride around like fluffy four-wheelers, or hunted these beasts to extinction, which are the only two dignified approaches to dealing with nature. So as far as I'm concerned, this state is filled with uncreative weenies, and when the Chinese take over, these are the first people that will be sent to the glue factories, along with English lit majors. They do have oil though, so we'll keep it E tier. Arizona. The desert dwellers of this state are such masochists. Your turquoise beads are not going to save you from the ravages of the landscape that you choose to live in. Unless you're too poor to move, in which case, that's also sad. However, red sand, pretty. I want to wander into that desert and become one with nature. Have a blurry photo of me taken and end up as a new cryptid. D tier. Arkansas. The Little Rock 9 incident took place here. So the next time you talk to Mima, ask her where she was on September 4th, 1957. Aside from the whole integration thing, I cannot recall anything about this state. Its pronunciation does trip up people who are new to this country and trying to learn English, and I do think that is kind of funny. Modern day Arkansas, though, I mean, to sell it would require somebody to want to purchase it. I don't even think the Native Americans want it back. The state is essentially a broken down pickup truck with a pair of those like grotesque metal testes hanging from the rear bumper. You won't even be able to drive it near a school. If anything, it's shockingly underwhelming stats are making me kind of fond of it. Oh, gee. Come here, Arkansas. B tier. I'm just kidding, E tier. California, F tier. Colorado. Colorado is underrated. Better weather and more attractive people than you would expect. Unfortunately, the fit people of Denver seem like they'd be the kind to wear those grotesque running shoes. Plus, they got on board with the ganja very early on and wouldn't shut up about it. If you're over the age of 25 and you're just gonna be a junkie, you need to select a substance that is more dignified. Like pills, whippets, straight people can do them now. That's literally their tagline. Wine, not beer, that is only acceptable if you're a working class male that has a strained relationship with his father. White stoners that made puffing on Mary Jane their whole personality are the only substance users that actually need to be jailed. Swap them out for the people in prison for use. At least they can be put to use as nighttime construction workers. Tell them that it's a game of real-life Tetris, and they can keep any scrap metal that's left over. As for the non-Denver parts of the state, Columbine took place there, so E tier. Connecticut. I enjoy how unapologetically waspy this state is. Shameless elitism just speaks to me. I also enjoy the fact that if the Wall Street crooks decide to pull another '08, we can bomb all of the exits to the state and trap those Skull and Bones members turned heads of Goldman Sachs in the state that most of the head honchos on Wall Street actually live in. Even if they have like a place in the city that they manage to hunker down in, they'll still end up being estranged from a kid of theirs that probably goes to a boarding school in Connecticut. I don't see anything unethical about holding the children of the wealthy for ransom until they hand over the money that they defrauded people out of. We'll give those kids Capri Suns, okay? It's not gonna be Abu Ghraib. A tier. Delaware. The banality of this state is disturbing. People mock the Midwest for having a nothingness to it, but that's not even really true. The Midwest is kitschy, but comfortable, like those corny holiday sweaters, but at least the people there are nice. I am convinced that half the people in Delaware are just cardboard cutouts or crash test dummies. This used car lot of a state just irks me. It shouldn't exist. F tier. Florida. The state has every flavor of American. Cubanos, who will drunkenly tell you why immigration is bad. Geriatric Jews carrying tiny guns. Tourists waddling around with corporate Disney brain rot. Scarfing down a churro with the veracity of a North Korean refugee. Tallahassee hicks, whose family are living off of a settlement that they got from a boating accident. Drunken college kids on spring break who will eventually go missing. It's an almost grotesque sight to behold, but my gosh, is it magnificent. S tier. Georgia. Peaches and Aftay. That was a terrible southern accent. Tyler Perry also respawns there. You know, as a black person, I feel obligated to honor my ancestral birthplace of Atlanta. But the CNN headquarters are in this state, I think, which does make me want to take it over just so that I can start broadcasting my preferred propaganda. As for the non-Atlanta regions of this state, I don't really feel anything about them. I don't think the state is stereotypically hickish enough to be known for that either. I wouldn't want to wear any sort of flowy all-white outfits in the rural parts of the state, especially at twilight, lest I be mistaken for the ghost of a house slave. C tier. Hawaii. I want to use those sunburnt tourists as target practice. With a BB gun. Was the state forcefully annexed? Yeah. But if the US government hadn't done that, would we have The White Lotus Season 1? Maybe. Would we have been able to see Jennifer Coolidge weep hysterically while she flung her mother's ashes off a boat? Oh, don't you just love resorts? Makes me want a hot dog real bad. I might be mixing up her quotes. The state is gorgeous, though. A tier. Idaho. Insert potato joke here. You know what? Let's actually salute this state for its culinary contribution. What have other flyover states like West Virginia given us, besides coal and white crack users? I really don't mind the sort of glassy-eyed kindness of people from the Midwest. Thinking about buying some land out there, learning to live off of it. I start my own radio show, similar to Alex Jones, but not as sophisticated. I build a sort of cultish enclosure. The whole thing turns into Waco 2.0, electric boogaloo. A tier. Illinois. Cornfield, clips, cubs, corruption, even more cornfields. It's an interesting juxtaposition, but not interesting enough. E tier. Indiana. I do not have a single opinion, whether negative or positive, about this place. When I attempt to visualize it, my brain can only conjure up an image of a completely glaringly white space. C tier. Iowa. Ditto what I said for Indiana. C tier. Kansas. You know, this state is known for being forgettable, but I think that gives it some charm. Let me just say that I can already smell the new generation of young people, sick and tired of the grind of the city, deciding to settle in the middle of nowhere and homestead or be tradwives, but not even being particularly good at either one of those things, or building pipe bombs, or starting a cult, or God forbid, a startup. And once they do that, the state will be ruined. I recommend building a fence on the state lines now. B tier. Kentucky. Yeehaw! I'm gonna break into the Kentucky Derby and steal one of the horses. Turn old Secretariat into a bottle of glue. B tier. Louisiana. Katrina girl, you tried to take out the birthplace of Hurricane Chris. Hey, baby. Hey, baby. But you failed. The state that brought us jazz, gumbo, true blood. All equally important contributions to American society, really. B tier. Maine. Also, when I keep saying Hicks, I'm not like trying to be disrespectful. I just like that word. I say it in the nicest way possible. I find Northern Hicks fascinating. Not as much as the Southern ones, though, because the ones below the Mason-Dixon line have a spiciness that can only really come from being kind of evangelical and having a grandfather of theirs witness a cross burning. A tier. Maryland. The Wire took place here. They also apparently have very good crabs. I wouldn't know because I don't want to ever eat an animal that I know can smoke a cigarette. It would probably enjoy it too, leaning up against a lamppost while doing it. Pompous bastard. Potomac is in this state, and I enjoy bougie enclaves. I actually once drove to the house of the CEO or vice president or whatever of Verizon. He lives there. Don't ask how I know that. My friend and I were asked to leave the neighborhood. So, C tier. Massachusetts, an interesting mix of two of my favorite flavors of Caucasian, wasps and working class Irish. Bostonian wasps are some of the oldest in the country. They got their shoes shined on Plymouth Rock. They fascinate me in a strictly anthropological sense. Working class Irish Bostonians have the perfect accent for a sad A24 film about a dysfunctional poor family. I can only really do a kind of Bostonian accent if I pretend to be a negligent drunk mother. Oh, you think you're better than me because you went to DeVry. Oh, I'm sorry, you logged on. What's gonna happen if you forget your password? You don't graduate? You're just like your father. B tier. Michigan. I'm really blanking here. Outside of the tragic fate of the city of Detroit, I haven't really thought much about this state. Oh, wait! Flint! Does their tap water still look like chocolate milk? This country has really abandoned her people. Well, the state does sort of gently molest some of the Great Lakes, and I enjoy that. B tier. Minnesota. Let's be real. All anyone associates with this state is Fargo. Wait a minute, that actually might have been one of the Dakotas. Or was it Minnesota? It doesn't matter. This state reminds me of a handmade sweater that has a cocker spaniel on it, or like a cookie jar in the shape of like a teddy bear or like a cherub. The kitschiness with which I am describing the Midwest is just coming off as patronizing. Oh well, postal elitist alert. I'm gonna make a cocktail dress out of my reusable Trader Joe's bags. Any leftover material, I'm turning into little yarmulkes. A tier. Mississippi, sipping liquor with a gallon of home milk as a chaser, swinging on a rocking chair on the front porch of my daddy's house, shotgun pointing right at you. I'm holding it up with my toesy woesies because my hands are full. People who grew up in the North don't know this, but every Southerner has prehensile feet. They're like that one chick from Aeon Flux. Old Missy doesn't have the same charm as her Southern sisters. I know that I'm finally allowed to enter the state after sundown, and it would be nice to be the thinnest person in any given town, but B tier. Missouri, the arch in St. Louis. It calls to me, beckoning me to walk underneath it. Forbidden McDonald, where you only get half a meal. It's not even funny. I think I might have brain damage. The most interesting thing to happen in this state was the whole Ferguson fiasco. I hear they have decent barbecue. The state is not uniquely Southern or Midwestern, but it's not doing its own thing either. It has nothing, really. It kind of disgusts me. F tier. Montana. The state is beautiful. I'll give it that. Cheap land, I'm assuming. I'd love to rent a horse. Like it's a car. Or just steal one. What are they, registered? Probably. How would they even find me? I'd sneak into a barn with a balaclava on. It's Montana. They'll just think it's a hijab. And then I'll mount that beast and ride it across the land. Then I'll find a river near a small town. As the horse sips the cool water, I'll abandon the creature. But not before gently pressing our heads together as a way of saying thank you. I whisper, I forgive your people for what they did to Christopher Reeves. C tier. Nebraska. Okay, we're getting into more cornfield territory. This is where Larry the Cable Guy, the supposedly southern working class man / millionaire, originally hails from. This entire country is full of scammers and fraudsters, and I love it. This entire state just reminds me of a beer wearing a plaid button-up shirt. The beer is also a divorced father. I don't know how. C tier. Nevada houses the greatest city in the world, a cesspool of degeneracy and vice. That's right. Reno, the sequenced cigarette of cities. In all honesty, outside of Reno and Las Vegas, there is no point in Nevada existing. I'm getting kind of sick and tired of having to bring up the state's natural beauty. That's not an accomplishment of the people. These desert dwellers need to know that if it wasn't for the disgustingly ostentatious, yet, impressively self-aware city of Las Vegas, where the elderly go to gamble their grandchildren's college funds on minion slot machines, no one would care about this chunk of land. California would have bought the land and turned it into a prison state, and they should. E tier. New Hampshire. Northern Hicks. Snowy pricks. Deer ticks. It's a fairly unmemorable state in the Northeast. Inoffensive enough. C tier. New Jersey. There is nothing I love more than a state that has a considerable amount of wealth juxtaposed with tanned, stained, wife-beater-wearing walking stereotypes, single-handedly keeping anti-Italian sentiments alive in the U.S. From an anthropological standpoint alone, that's putting Jersey at B tier. New Mexico. Troy Bolton's trying to score, but not just while playing hoops. I like the name Albuquerque. It sounds like a squeaky door, and I'm juvenile enough to give the state a high ranking for that reason alone. I like the idea of being able to peer into Mexico with binoculars and going, no entrar. And the people looking back at me say, Mirar, esa hermana Mauri gordita nos está mirando fiamente. A tier. New York. Listen, much like Nevada, we all know who the star of the state is. No other city in the country can compare. LA, you kombucha guzzlers could never. Seattle, that tech gulag. One of the reigning princes of your city, Bill Gates, still has the friendship bracelet that he and Epstein made for each other in that little townhouse of his, which is technically in Manhattan. I'm not saying that NYC is home to the most ethical people. If anything, at this point, if you see a gorgeous, large piece of real estate in any major city, just know that a war criminal, or worse, a trust fund baby, resides there for 10 days out of the year. I like the crassness of NYC people, because the city has no middle-class niceties, because it has no real middle class. Either you're filthy rich, emphasis on the filth, or you're broke. If the socioeconomic breakdown of your city does not look like kids playing jump rope, it's not going to be an interesting city. Plus, New York State has the Hamptons. You know that in the Hamptons, you're actually legally allowed to shoot poor people if they're trespassing on your lawn. Don't look that up. The rest of New York is inoffensive enough. And if you happen to be from Buffalo or Albany, and you're sick and tired of people only caring about New York because of the Big Apple, step your game up. Stop saying stuff like, actually, Albany is the state capital of New York. Yeah, we know. Y'all are the Sacramento of the East Coast. Pledge it. S tier. North Carolina. I like the Carolinas. They're like mint julep and an iced tea. Would that even taste good? There is a somewhat aristocratic vibe to North Carolina. Granted, I've only ever visited Charlotte, where I did go to this chicken place, which had phenomenal customer service. I assume because they had a sniper positioned to shoot any employee who didn't have a Joker smile plastered across their face. And I thought to myself, wow, this is the peak of Southern hospitality. Mandatory, instead of punishment, constantly looming over, which is keeping in line with Southern tradition. The chicken was great too, and that's because they whisper slurs to it. It's the only way to make comfort food taste good. You have to hate crime at first. A tier. North Dakota. Mountain pretty? I think I'd have a better chance of bumping into an actual Native American wandering around this state compared to other parts of the country. We'd lock eyes from across a creek or something, and I would say, Namaste. And they'd respond, wrong Indian dipshit. And then I would just leave the state and never come back. C tier. Ohio. Way back in the day, I heard on an episode of Oprah that this state was apparently voted to have the nicest people, but also had a population that swore the most, and I like that combo. To be fair, I don't know how true those polls or studies were. This is Oprah we're talking about. That woman legitimized Deepak Chopra and Dr. Oz and Phil. So, take this with a grain of salt. I don't mind Ohio. The Paul brothers hail from that state, so it's not just pioneers in aviation that state has produced. The state is unusually important come election season, which seems undeserved, but then again, I would prefer the people of Ohio with power compared to those from Florida or California. Those are states that have fascinating specimens of humans, really, and God bless them, but the more interesting a population, the less I want them to vote. Matter of fact, unplug the machines. Just let the CIA choose the president, which is what they've been doing for the past few decades anyway. B tier. Oklahoma. The state looks like it's pan-frying Kansas, or chopping into Texas, whichever one you prefer. This was the site of one of my top 3 favorite domestic terrorist incidents. There is a musical also named after this place, which I don't know if that's really a point in its favor or a mark against it. D tier. Oregon. I might nuke a whole state just to get rid of Portland, honestly. Heck, most of the reason that I'm obliterating California is to get rid of Silicon Valley. I still can't believe that our future dystopian overlords wear flip-flops to work. At least tyrants of the past dressed well. They were swagged out and Hugo Boss. The person overseeing the lithium mining fields that our grandchildren will be forced to toil away in will be a wearing cargo shorts. There are a lot of progressive politics in Portland that are more genuine than in LA, for example, or at least the industry parts of LA, where all of the pro-insert whatever political cause is hot at the moment always rings hollow to me because it's being posted by a 21-year-old who would think that Idi Amin was a former NFL player if you showed them a photo of him. And obviously there are people in Portland working with local charities or giving back to their community, but much like the hippies of Denver, there's a lot of people in this city who seem to think that saving humanity consists exclusively of smoking a doobie in a drum circle and dressing like an art teacher that gets fired for inappropriate conduct. You're not an activist, you're a junkie. F tier. Pennsylvania. Boring suburbs. I did win a UPenn speech and debate competition in the state, however. Not to brag. Before any of you go, wow, you peaked in high school. Joke's on you, because that was literally the only impressive thing I ever did in high school. The Wharton School of Business is in UPenn, and I can't help but think about how many corrupt heads of corporations that institution has sharded out. Or failed businessmen and women who decided to end it all after filing for bankruptcy when their company went belly up. I prefer these waspy Ivy League graduates to the new money tech bros, though. These old money types understand the importance of discretion. Plus, I think if any one of them unironically used the term synergy, they would explode. Regarding the rest of the state, it's obviously significant when it comes to American history. I'm pretty sure it's where Ben Franklin first contracted syphilis. Philadelphia, besides being the place where one of the greatest sitcoms of all time takes place, is a pretty unimpressive city. Be for real. Unless you have family that lives here or your specific flavor of autism makes you obsessed with colonial history, you're not really thinking much about this city or this state. C tier. Rhode Island. It seems fine enough. Does anyone have a strong opinion on this state? I wouldn't mind walking around the suburbs of this place. I mean, Family Guy takes place here precisely because of how mundane it is, but its banality does not annoy me as much as Delaware's does. It's C tier. I would have bumped it up to maybe A tier because I could consider moving here when I'm older. I'd be able to buy like a nice little piece of property. People would leave me alone. I work from home anyway. I mean, I'd have to keep myself entertained, but that's what Live Leak is for. Or used to be for. They take everything good away from us. However, the winters... Okay, look, I know I said that I might consider moving to states that are even colder, but you know what? I'm not a Stark, okay? I'm not doing that to myself. South Carolina. Ditto what I said for North Carolina. Though this state seems a little bit more low-key, so B tier. South Dakota. Is there really much of a difference between this state and North Dakota? Copy-paste what I said about that state, too. C tier. Tennessee, the birthplace of Hannah Montana, the only singer to ever exist. Interesting mix of rural poors and southern riches. I, like most people, mostly associate this state with country music and barbecue. I didn't grow up with barbecued meats, and I'm not against them, alright? I also enjoy slathering things in sauce. I'm just unfamiliar with it. Country music is very hit or miss. I think it has a worse reputation than what is warranted. But I'm saying that because, you know, I enjoy, like, sad, alcoholic music. The best country music could easily serve as the soundtrack to somebody's That's its strength. Or love songs about devastating heartbreak or wanting to kill your spouse. The classics. A lot of the country music that manages to cross over is just country bros singing twang over a trap beat, or millionaires pretending they drink Miller Lite. I prefer rich celebrities that don't even try to be relatable. That's the point of fame, is to not be accessible, and to get away with vehicular manslaughter. Mariah Carey has the right idea of fame. B tier. Texas. The state is doing the loser hand sign to the rest of the country, and I can respect that. Texas is where every stereotype that foreigners have about Americans, whether positive or negative, comes to life. Now that Joe Rogan has moved to Austin, that's supposed to be like the next big comedy city. Sure. Austin is not depressing or gritty enough to produce genuinely funny people. The best you're gonna get are transplants desperately tap dancing in order to get onto his podcast. And all of the fairly well-off or famous people from other parts of the country that they helped destroy are just gonna move to Austin and continue being annoying leeches. This is also the state where the Bush family pretends to be cowboys. So, you know, if you're a Republican scam artist, this is a state for you. This is a landmass that I would prefer to observe from a distance with like little opera glasses. E tier. Something tells me that the residents of this state, with maybe the exception of people from the major cities, would not mind Texas being turned into a Thunderdome. They pray for it. Utah. Salt Lake City, where the city is salt and the lake is city. Mormon secrets built this state. Oh, old Joseph Smith. This country really is a haven for scammers, huh? Very sweet practitioners of the faith, but shady church. That's 10 HBO documentaries waiting to happen. The sand dunes, though. Boy, I'd like to plop my little footprints on those bad boys. D tier. Vermont. A Birkenstock covered in maple syrup driving a Prius. My visual metaphors are just getting worse. Is that even a metaphor? Who cares? The test scores in this country are not high enough for most people to notice. Nice trees. Burt's Bees. I don't know if that company was founded in Vermont, but doesn't it feel like it should be? Bernie Sanders called it of these here woods, and legend has it, once he eventually kills the head of the DNC, he'll walk back into them and never be seen again. C tier. Virginia. This state is bougier than a lot of people think. 2 of the richest counties in the country are here. That's what making weapons for Raytheon will get you. Every time I drive through Fairfax, I can't help but think about how many Yemeni birthday parties were indefinitely postponed because of these people. A tier. Washington. Apart from Seattle, I don't really think much about this state. Wait a minute. Twilight took place here, in that small town called Sporks, or something stupid, and that kind of makes me like the state again. It tickles me to know that the state is mostly known for Amazon, Microsoft, and glittery Robert Patterson. I want to swing through the Washingtonian foliage like an American gibbon. B tier. West Virginia. The state just makes me sad. It's like all of it is Detroit. Not as industrial, but just as a symbol of a bygone era of American exceptionalism. At least economically. These poors are the sad kind. Smoke 'em like roaches. F tier. Wisconsin. I have a sinking suspicion that I'm going to choke to death on a milk curd. It would be a classy way to go. This state does not have the Midwestern charm of somewhere like Minnesota. And listen, I have pop culture brain rot. So yeah, whenever I think about this state, all of the images in my mind conjures are basically scenes from That 70s Show. Which is unfortunate because Topher Grace is one of the only main cast members that doesn't have some sort of weird industry stank on him. D tier. Wyoming. Beautiful plains stretching as far as the eye can see. What's that in the distance? Is that the artist formerly known as Kanye? He glides over the plains, his Yeezys gently brushing up against the taller grass. As he gets closer, I can see that his eyes are all black. He zooms past me, knocking me to the ground. I notice that he is moving towards a circle of people dressed in all white, swaying back and forth gently, like flowers in the wind. The ghosts of members of the Donner Party. They notice me staring at them and raise their hands toward me. They open their mouths in unison, but no sound comes out. Then I hear a whisper, "Come join us." As Kanye enters the circle, they all begin to look up at the sky. Kanye begins rapping Mein Kampf in the original German as he levitates above all the people of this makeshift pioneer Coachella. I stick around and listen to a few pages, I'm not gonna lie. C tier. Okay, that's it. And for any of you who think that my ratings are too subjective and you're upset that I did not take into consideration any real information about the state before making my rankings, I don't know what to tell you. This is not an educational channel. Who do I look like, Vsauce? Tell me down below if you agree, disagree. What state do you want to wipe off the face of the earth? Is it the one that you're living in while you're still in it? It's okay, you can tell me. Like, comment, subscribe, hit that notification bell so you know every single time that I shard out one of these completely arbitrary rankings. Thank you for watching. Shout out to my patrons. If you would like to donate to my Patreon, then click on the link in the description or on screen. Thank you so much to my top Patrons, your names are on screen right now. These are my other lovely patrons. Your names should be scrolling up on screen as I speak. Thank you so much for helping me have money so I can buy gas and go to Whole Foods. I'm not shoplifting anymore.